Hello class and welcome to today's lesson on 1.1. So today's objective, students will be able to use the multiplication counting principle. And then our essential question is, what is the multiplication counting principle and what math function do we use for it? So with all videos here, if you ever need to pause it, feel free to do so, as I will move at a fairly quick pace here. So to start with, the multiplication counting principle. It is used to find the number of different ways to do a process that involves multiple steps. It's again used to find the number of ways to do a process involving multiple steps. And what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the number of ways to do each step together. And if you need to pause that, feel free to do so. So looking at this example here, it says, I'm picking how to make an ice cream cone from 5 different flavors, 3 different toppings, and 2 different cones. How many options do I have? Well, by using the multiplication counting principle, we take our 5 flavors, we multiply it by our 3 toppings, then multiply that by our 2 different cones for a total of 30 options. Total of 30 options. So another example on the next page here, it says, Mr. Oy is buying a new car. When he goes to the dealership, he can choose from 5 different colors, 9 different models, and 3 different trim levels. How many different cars does he actually have to choose from? So again, we're going to use that multiplication counting principle. We're going to take our first step has 5 ways to do it. Our second step has 9 ways. Third step has 3. So we take all those, we multiply them together, and we get 135 options. So now changing up, similar type problem, but this time we're going to talk about license plates and different ways to create them. So this first question says, in the city of Proton, citizens are required to have license plates for their cars with the following pattern. 2 letters, followed by 3 numbers, then followed by 1 letter or number. So now it says how many different license plates can be made for the city. So I'm going to start with is the first 2 things have to be letters, next 3 have to be numbers, and the last one could be a letter or a number. So when we think about this, for this first one, we got to think, okay, it says I need a letter. Well, we got to think, okay, the alphabet has 26 letters. So my options, the number of options for that first piece is 26. Right? Then again, it doesn't say anything about not being able to use a letter or not being able to repeat a letter, which we'll get into later in this class. Right? So I just write 26 again. Right? I can use any letter that I want. Then it says followed by 3 numbers. Notice all 3 of these would just be single-digit numbers. And we have to think of how many options do we have. Well, we have any of the numbers between 0 and 9, which is a total of 10 numbers. And again, just like the letters, doesn't say anything about repeats or things like that, so we can use 10 for each one. And then our last one, notice it is letters or numbers. So that means we're going to add these 2 together, right? We have 10 numbers plus 26 letters, a total of 36 options for that last piece. So now what we're going to do, we multiply these numbers together, right? Step number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, right? We multiply those steps together. And if we multiply all those numbers together, we're going to get a number of 24,336,000. So that's how many different license plates can be made. So then part B says the mayor of the city just changed the law because he doesn't like the letters Q or X. The plates can no longer contain these letters. How many plates is this now? So notice it's going to be very similar. Process is the same, letter, letter, followed by number, 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 and then letter or number. So now what we're going to do here is for our letters, instead of having 26, we now have 24 because there are 2 letters that we cannot use. 2 letters we cannot use. Then for our numerical values, right, there's no restriction on those, so those are still 10. And then we just have to be careful, right, this time it's going to be, it's going to be 24 plus 10, which would give us 34. So if we take those numbers, right, we multiply them together here. Get an answer of 19,584,000 license plates. So moving on here, we have a new vocab word. That new vocab word is called a factorial. Factorial. So it says for any positive integer n, so n is just some number, n, we define n factorial, that's how we read this piece right here, as the product of the numbers starting with n and going down to 1. So notice the example here, 6 factorial, we can rewrite it as 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, right, going down to 1, and we get an answer of 720. So we have an example here where we're going to use that. Right, if we think of this example, it says you are making a playlist of your 11 favorite songs to listen to while you do your homework. And how many different ways can you order the songs? Well, let's think about this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Put one more over here. 11. So right, those are our 11 slots for our songs. When you think about it, right, your very first song, you have 11 songs to choose from. Right, you have 11 songs to choose from for your first song. But now, right, now we have 10 songs for our second one because one's already been chosen. Right, for our third song, 2 have been chosen, so now we're down to 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And so what we're going to do is we multiply those numbers out. Multiply those numbers out, and we get 39,916,800 different ways. And why we bring up this factorial is there's actually an easier way to do this right on our calculator. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Right? We could rewrite this as 11 factorial, and we'll talk about how we do that on our calculator here in a second. So looking at this one, if I have 7 baseball players who need to bat, how many orders are there for them to bat in? Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 players for the first at bat, 6 for second at bat, and so on. Which again can be written as 7 factorial. So what I'm going to do this time is show us how we can do this right on our calculator. So if we look here, pull up my calculator. So looking at my calculator here, we have this math button. We're going to get to that. We're going to use that. But what I want us to do first, right, our problem dealt with 7. So we're going to type in the number 7 first. Then what you're going to do, you hit math. You arrow over, whether you go to the left or the right. And you're going to get to this one that says either PRB or it says prob. All right, that's going to stand for probability. And then if we look here at number 4, right, number 4 is that factorial symbol. We can just hit enter right when we get there, or you could also have hit 4. Hit enter on here, and we'll hit enter one more time, and it gives us our answer. Right, instead of having to type out, right, we could do it here, 7 times 6 times
5 times 4